bush is burning, it's burning for you. Lance Bush is burning, it's burning for you.
Welcome to another edition of Len's Burning Bush. I am Len Harvey. Before I bring on my guest for the week, I want to talk about what's really burning my bush. So a few months ago, February the 26th to be exact, episode 99, I talked about baseball, okay? America's pastime with Del Gaudio. I ranted about Major League Baseball locking out during a war, during a pandemic, and I said, you got to get back to playing baseball, right? And they finally did. They finally agreed to start playing games in March and April. But they continue to give fans reasons to watch other sports. First, here in Cincinnati area, you have an owner that on opening day appeared to tell fans they had no choice but to accept the team's pared-down roster. Of course, then he apologized later, and, he just kept going. He was quoted after fans wanted him to sell the team. Bob Castellini, who is the owner, said, well, where are you going to go? Let's start there. I mean, sell the team to who? That's the other thing you want to have in this debate. You want to look at what you could do with the team to be more profitable, make more money, and compete more in the current economic system that this game exists for, right? So it would be to pick up and move somewhere else. And of course, if they move somewhere else, then, you'll watch them, but you maybe watch them on TV. But it is the ability to watch games on TV that is an utter nightmare these days. Try even finding like postseason games on TV. It'll take you 10 to 15 minutes to figure out what night TBS has, what night Fox has, and it just gets a little bit crazy. When I was a kid, they showed the games on ABC, NBC, and CBS and alternated every year. It was pretty easy to figure out. There were actual World Series games that started at 3:30 in the afternoon, so the kids could actually watch the game after school, and some kids would watch them in school or listen to the games on the radio. That is a great concept for kids actually getting back into the game. Now, recently, MLB has experimented with Apple TV, and now most recently, the Yankees have come up with this idea to put games on Amazon Prime, take them off local TV to put the games on. But the Yankees actually sent out an email. They actually did this. They sent out an email to their fans with instructions on how they could actually watch the games on Amazon Prime. How good is this for baseball? It may be good for Apple and Amazon Prime members, but what about the people that don't have this service? If baseball really wants to get fans back, they need to put all the games back on local TV again, okay? When I was a kid, before big sports channels on cable, games appeared on the local TV channel, WPIX in New York. I remember the Yankees were always on there. It was actual rabbit ears. You didn't need cable for it. You could get it without, and it was great, right? But now you pay $200 a month for cable and internet, and there's no guarantee, even with that you're going to be able to watch any of these games. I mean, I get the MLB subscription because I want to watch the Yankees, okay? But I can't watch the Reds games. Believe it or not, I cannot watch any Reds games at all. My provider, Dish Network, does not carry Bally Sports Ohio. And because the games are blacked out on the MLB app, I can't even watch it on the Bally app because it asks you who's your provider, and it's not listed, of course, because they don't carry it. So maybe it's good that the Reds have lost 10 games in a row, but the bottom line is I can't watch it. The other thing is afternoon games, especially on the weekends, okay? The NFL, which is made billions, almost trillions of dollars. They play most of their games at 1 and 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Now, I know they've got the evening game on Sunday and Monday and Thursday, which they keep just going back to the well. But why can't baseball go back to the old days and show more afternoon games? Night baseball, especially in April, is ridiculous, especially on the East Coast where you see players with hand warmers and hoodies, and it's just ridiculous. I love baseball and thought, that the players and owners ending this lockout, that everything would be fixed. But it hasn't been fixed at all. There's nothing like attending an afternoon baseball game. If you haven't done it, it is an awesome experience. Get out there with your family, have a $10 hot dog and a $20 beer, again, overpriced, but it's a great experience to be able to do that. And how about this? Okay. TV makes these games at night, right? They want the games at night. How about a concept that would be great? Give the fans what they want for a change. Make the games available in the afternoon and maybe be able to watch the games for free. With that being said, it's time to bring on my guest for the week. She is a certified professional coactive coach, nonprofit management, and fundraising consultant. She's a national speaker. She also hosts an awesome podcast called The Cause Coach. Please welcome to the podcast today the lovely Mary Connolly, my friend. And Mary, how are you? It's great to talk to you. And I know I sound like that curmudgeon, get off my lawn, but I can't take it anymore. They just make things, they're so stupid.
Well, Len, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. And I just love reconnecting with you because we go back, I don't know what, like
a few years,
30 some years.
Yeah. Something like that.
And of course, I came on to talk about running because that's what my podcast is all about. But
of course.
But there is running in baseball. So this is a nice crossover. And I have to tell you, I could not agree with you more, especially on those daytime games.
Yeah.
One of my most favorite memories from childhood. It was October of 8th grade. And the Yankees and the Red Sox came up tied at the end of the season and played this amazing playoff game in which, of course, the Yankees won. So I have a great memory of that and Bucky Dent's famous home run. But what was so unique about that now, like looking back on the way things are now, is that it was an afternoon game. That game started while I was like in social studies class. And I remember the teacher saying, reading a word on the page, and it said, it was like Yankee or something like that. So the teacher said, let's turn on the game. So we turned on the game in our classroom, and then we listened to it on our transistor radios on the school bus going home. And then when I got home, I was watching the game. And of course, when the home run was hit, I was calling my friends, and it was, we were part of that. But if that had been a night game, I probably would have been in bed.
Well, what's funny and looking at this, and again, I sound like this, again, old person who likes things the way it was. And of course I do. But that being said, I remember in the 90s, the World Series game, this was Atlanta, or playoff game. It was Atlanta and Pittsburgh, I believe, in the National League Championship Series. The game was over like about 12:30, and one of the guys got a hit and won the game, and I don't remember who it was exactly, but I remember at that moment I'm saying, there's not one kid up watching this game.
Yeah.
And it's just wrong. Because I remember, again, in the 70s, there was the Yankees played a couple of 3:30 World Series games. Also, when I refer to that, 1977 and 78, they put a lot of the games on at night, but it didn't seem like the games would end at, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. It was a little bit earlier. And I remember Reggie Jackson hitting the 3 home runs in the 77 World Series. But if you don't have kids watching today, you're not going to keep your fan base. They've got me, but they've lost. Anybody that's 30 years old and below don't really care about baseball.
And baseball is probably the one. Maybe soccer is taken over now, but baseball is that one sport that kids always played growing up. So they understand the fundamentals of it. So it's very easy for them to follow, what the pros are doing. Other sports might be a little bit more complicated. And, I think I was a teenager before I really understood football, because I never played. I played basketball, I played softball, but you understand the fundamentals of baseball, and it makes it very easy for kids to follow. But it really has. there's like just the commercial breaks and the crazy sponsorships. Every second of the game has a sponsor. That it has become a little more unwatchable. And of course, the whole system has gotten more complicated. I have like 4 remote controls sitting over there on the coffee table, and I have no idea how to use any of them. Like I actually asked my husband, to turn the television on for me. So
Well, it's because used to be you had one box, right? You subscribed to cable and you got all your channels. Now you got Apple TV, you got Amazon Prime, you got things are airing on Hulu and Netflix, and I can't remember Disney Plus and all these other services, HBO Max, and you got like 70 different things. What I do is I buy a Roku TV and it's got all the channels built in, and I could just use one remote because I get it. You know, you're sitting there. You know, even with me, even the one remote for the TV still has to have another one because you got the Dish Network remote and you've got, you know, stuff like that you've got to air through the satellite. But you pay all this money. I mean, people pay as much for like a 1-bedroom apartment as they do for like cellular service, internet, phone, whatever they've got, and cable, and they still got to pay, you know, $14 a month for Amazon Prime, and they still got to pay $10 a month for Hulu, and you know Netflix is losing subscribers and this one is on that, but there's certain shows that you want to watch and you gotta, it's like they've made it into where cutting the cord is a pain in the tuchus, as I like to say. Yeah, it's just
and then the cost is just ridiculous. Like I am paying, well, we are paying here more for all of these television channels than I paid my first payment on my first car 35 years ago.
If you would have told me that you would pay like $500 a month for your cell phone bill, your cable bill, and your internet bill, I mean, my parents, I remember moving to New Jersey, we didn't pay for that for an apartment a month. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's kind of crazy how it's like we're wasting all this money and then you can't find anything to watch. Or if you want to find something to watch, you have to have a specific, you know, you're watching like Ozark's coming up again, the final season of Ozark, which I love Ozark. I don't know if you've watched it.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So apparently it's coming back on the 29th and it's on Netflix. So what does that mean? You've got to go to that other remote and you got to find the Netflix and you got to watch Jason Bateman. And you know, it is a great show. The awesome. Birds are back, as they say. So I can't wait for that. But there's just too many of this and there's almost too much choices. I had an episode back, you know, when the early goings of the show, and we talked about too many choices. It's like when you go to a restaurant, keep the menu simple. Like I don't need 75 different things, and don't put chicken fingers on the menu just because the kids are coming, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was a young parent, somebody gave me the advice that if you take your kids into a restaurant, you know, pick 2 or 3 things that you know that they like and say, like, do you want the pizza? Do you want the hot dog? Do you want the chicken nuggets? Don't show them the menu. And, you know, because then they're never going to decide what they want. Just get, you know, and I think that applies to all of us. Just like too many choices. Like I miss the days when, you know, when the major networks used to just decide what television was going to be available for me for that night, and I either watched it or I didn't. You know,
it was like the funny thing, you know, the Saturday before Easter, you always watched the 10 Commandments, right? It was always on ABC and whatever, and now it's like they're moving it or they're putting it on. You know, the same thing with Charlie Brown. You got to watch it on Apple, and this is on. It's like I can't deal with it anymore.
I actually gave up watching TV for a really long time, just because I had no interest in anything that was on. And now especially during the pandemic, we've started, you know, binge watching. You bring up Ozark, you know, that, and now Better Call Saul is back. So we're watching that. And I'm kind of bummed that it's only like once a week, because now I'm going to have to watch Ozark in the middle of Better Call Saul. And I really like just focusing on one thing at a time. You know?
I know. Well, they started to do that. You know, we like the idea of the binge watching, and then Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I did an episode on this too, where they decided to do it weekly. And I'm like, I don't want that. That's the way we used to. I don't want that. I don't want to wait. It's like Blue Bloods. I got to wait each week to watch it. And it's like, I'm out. I want to watch it. I want to watch several episodes at a time, and I want to be done with it. Anyway, you have, created a conglomerate, I like to say, because, you know, between all the things you're doing, between your speaking and, you know, you're doing what you want to do. You started with running and exercising, and, you know, you've got a podcast out, The Cause Coach, and you know, it's a great concept, and I love it. I listen to it, and I think you know, a lot better than Len's Burning Bush. Let me just say that off the top of my thing. But why don't you talk a little bit to my listeners about how you got started with it? And I know that wasn't always your goal, you know, growing up. So
Yeah, so it's interesting too because I was always an athlete growing up, but I hated to run. But back when you knew me, and I don't know if your listeners know this, but we met at the Record of Hackensack, New Jersey, the newspaper, better known maybe as the Bergen Record. But back in those days, I remember somebody tried to recruit me for the corporate challenge team. And I was like, I don't run. I played NCAA soccer and I was the goalkeeper because I hated to run. And then I was kind of, always searching for that adult sport. And when I got out of college, and eventually I started running somewhat haphazardly, and I just really fell in love with it. And I found that, getting out for a run before work in the morning enabled me to be more focused. And then, of course, I set my goals on the marathon, and I ran my first marathon in 1997. And I had about a year before that started my first nonprofit job, which also was something I kind of fell into. I had gotten a certificate in sports and event marketing and wanted to, use that. I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I wound up getting a job with Bergen County's United Way in northern New Jersey. And after I'd been there about a year, I was running the New York City Marathon, and I decided to raise money for them. I had, I didn't know much about charity running or anything like that at the time, but I managed to raise $5,000, and that kind of set the tone of both my running and my fundraising going forward. I have ever since been trying to figure out how to incorporate my running into my fundraising and my fundraising into my running. So I kind of did that, on my own, sort of as a serial charity runner for a while. And then my network started to develop a little donor fatigue. And so I looked at other ways that I could help, charity runners and charity team coordinators, and everything else sort of kind of evolved from there. And it started as a blog post that was sort of all over the place to a very targeted podcast where I have on, other charity runners that come on to share best practices and promote their fundraisers, and charity team coordinators, as well as all the kinds of people that support them, coaches and trainers and physical therapists and, running retailers and massage therapists and nutritionists and all of that. So, and as far as I know, there's not a lot of people in the charity running space doing podcasts. So here I am.
There you are. And now how can people consume this podcast? I'm going to put the link of your website and everything in the description of the episode, so you'll get to see that. But how can people consume
Great,
it?
thanks. Yeah, it's called the Cause Coach, and it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify right now. Hoping to expand on that at some point, little by little. I've only been doing it since January. We're about I think I've recorded about 20 episodes, so we have stuff up there through the end of May, and I have other guests coming on.
Awesome.
And I'm also, the other thing I'm doing, I just took a full-time job working for Mercy Home here in Chicago, which is, we are the Mercy Home Heroes fundraising team. We are one of the largest local charitable teams in the Chicago area. We have about 250 to 300 runners running the Chicago Marathon every year. I am running New York this year.
Wow.
For my 25th anniversary of my first New York City Marathon in 97. So, but if anybody wants to, they can also go to mercyhome.org, and they can find me that way. That's really the only way people can coach with me now, just because I have such limited time.
Yeah. You're too busy. That's why I love you're able to come on the show. Now, I know that with the running and everything, and you talk about this a little bit about the fact that people get into shape and stuff, and how do you keep the weight down? I would like to know. But apparently, there's a new diet out there, and I don't know if you've seen this, but this is kind of funny. A San Francisco man has spent the past year documenting his weight loss on TikTok. His daily motivation is Taco Bell, believe it or not. Chris Sandberg went viral on social media for vowing to work out every day as a plea for Taco Bell to bring back the grilled stuffed nacho after the specialty item was discontinued back in 2015. Now, his journey began in January of 2021, telling followers in a clip, day one of exercising every day until Taco Bell brings back the grilled stuffed nacho. And every day since, he shared his video. This week, he's up to his 473rd consecutive day. Now, listen to this. Sandberg told the Washington Post that he weighed 275 pounds when he began the challenge, and in over a year, he has lost 85 pounds.
Good for him.
Given up. Now, I know people are very passionate about their certain fast food items. I know the McRib is one of those things where you either like it or you hate it, and McDonald's will bring it up. But Taco Bell, they probably need to do a spokesperson gig here. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we all know what happened to the guy from Subway.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I know. I just realized that. That would not be good. You're right. But it was good before that, and it just went off the rails a little bit. But,
yeah,
I think that it's kind of interesting. But to lose 85 pounds, and it just proves that, if you just work out and you do whatever, and you could probably lose the weight. And he gave up Taco Bell because they wouldn't do it. And I wonder if Taco Bell is going to respond to this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. I mean, do they bring it back, and does he start eating it and gain all the weight back? Like, that's not going to be a real good.
No, it's not. It doesn't have a happy ending.
Yeah, so I don't know, but hats off to him. I mean, it does show that exercise. I think. I mean, running is the best way for people to lose weight. You have to do it right, though. You have to go. A lot of people just go out and just run, and just practically kill themselves, and it's you got to do it a little bit more gradually than that. There's
everything in moderation.
Yeah, and the whole thing with diets and exercise is that there's so many conflicting things out there, and the reason why is because we're all a little different, and a diet and exercise routine that works for me isn't going to work for you and our neighbor down the street. So it's really important for people to find the things, but it really has to be habit changing. You can't, like, I don't exercise and diet. I train and fuel. So I look at it kind of differently. And thankfully, I've never really had a weight issue. One funny story, though, when I was training for my first marathon, I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't, fueling properly. And I just lost a ton of weight to the point where, I was too skinny. And at the same time, my first husband, was losing weight too. And he says, I don't understand why I'm losing weight. And it was because when I'd make dinner, I'd be so hungry after, running so many miles that day that I would put a little extra food on my plate and take a little extra off of his plate. So he just lost weight based on portion control.
See, you were helping even when you didn't realize it.
Yeah.
That is great. And it's true. Portions are important. Everything in moderation. If you want to eat ice cream, but don't eat like 2 bowls of it, right? Eat, a little bit, just a little taste, a little bit of a taste.
And you can't, the thing is that some of these diets are so restrictive that, so like these 30 days. So, okay, for 30 days, we can sacrifice and do what we need to do to meet the parameters of this diet. But on day 31, we're like, oh, thank God. And we suddenly binge eat, and we're just back to where we were. So,
well, everybody I've seen that has done the carb diet, the no carbs, they lose a lot of weight. But then what happens usually after is they get back because, it's just one of those things. But that's the bad part, right? You should be able to mix in a little bit of carbs, and not to give away, to go cold turkey on anything is not a good idea, right?
Yeah. The whole no carbs thing too. I mean, for runners, like, you need carbs. You're exercising. You need, that's what you burn. So you need carbs. The one thing that I have eliminated from my diet, though, is meat. I do not eat meat anymore. I get my protein from plant-based, a lot of beans and stuff like that. So.
Now, as someone who ate meat before, and now you're eating you're eating this way, right? What's the difference? What have you noticed the difference for you?
I feel better. I feel like I recover quicker after. I mean, you do have to make sure that you get enough protein. But when I, so a lot of times people say, "Oh, do you have, are you getting your protein?" And I was like, "Okay, so you're a meat eater. Do you really track your protein?" And you'd be like, "Yeah." So you'd be surprised at how much protein some plant-based stuff has. I mean, look at,
Okay.
like horses, right? They're
Yeah.
pretty muscular animals, and they are, eat a plant-based diet. So, and the same thing with cows and stuff, big, huge. So
Yeah.
we're fine. I would say one of the biggest differences that I've noticed, I'm not 100% vegan, but I try to be vegan, so I don't have a lot of dairy as well. And that to me was the biggest game changer. Eliminating dairy, I found I have no more seasonal allergies. I recover from runs quicker, because dairy promotes like inflammation. So you feel better. And as we, get into our 50s, and me, I'm
Yeah.
like well into my 50s now. I just feel physically better. And another big thing, and it doesn't matter whether you're eating meat or carbs or whatever, is water. You got to drink water. You got, especially as we age, our bodies retain less water. So you need, you need to stay hydrated. I
Yeah.
have
Because
a bottle that, it's a 20-ounce bottle, and I make sure that I fill that up 3 times a day. So
wow.
yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, obviously, beer and vodka is not enough water, I would think.
Well, there's
But
a little, you get a little credit in there, but they're also alcohol and caffeine are also diuretics, so you have to
well, I've
sparingly.
I've been doing this show now for 107 consecutive weeks, which is I should get some kind of award, I
Yeah,
guess, for doing it.
congratulations. That's
But
great.
all the people that have been on have either worked with me, or I've had some people that been referred to, or just some people that have come on the show. But I've had Heather O'Rourke on a couple of times, and you happen to know Heather, and I wanted
Yeah,
to, yeah, you listened to an episode that we had together. So
yeah, we were chatting before you hit record, and I always think it's funny. My first husband, who you knew, Chris, he always used to say that in Bergen County, New Jersey, there are only about 2 degrees of separation. And if you're sitting in a New Jersey diner, you better be careful who you're talking about, because the people in the booth behind you know them. And when I was listening to some episodes of your podcast, and I suddenly saw Heather O'Rourke come up. Heather O'Rourke is someone I knew in my childhood. She was a friend's younger sister. I was friends with her sister Holly, and our parents were friends. They lived up in the kind of the neighborhood behind where we lived, and my parents' business was. And a funny story about Heather, and I don't know if she's ever shared this with you, and I wouldn't share it if I hadn't heard her share it on the air on New York radio. But Heather was famous in the neighborhood for an accident that she had. She was a little girl, got into her mom's car, I guess put the car into neutral, and they lived up on the top of a hill. And so the car went, down the hill backwards across the street and like into the neighbor's house.
wow.
And when I heard that she was a traffic reporter, I just was like, that was she was where she belonged at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. It's kind of that works out for you, right? I mean, Heather's wonderful, and we'll probably have her on again. I'll have to ask her a little bit about her driving skills, but hopefully they've
Yeah.
gotten better.
Yeah, no, and the thing that I remember most about the O'Rourke is that they had these 2 big standard poodles. So you'll have to ask her about them as well. But yeah, it is funny. And then you were telling me that your wife knew Heather, went to school with her, right?
Yeah, they went to the same high school. Actually, they're a year
Yeah,
apart. Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of a fun thing.
That must
Yeah,
have been that must have been Indian Hills, right?
yes, that is
Yeah.
correct. Look at
Yep.
that. Look at you. You
Yeah.
remember.
So, but yeah, it is so funny. You just it's I mean, we are we've both relocated. You're in Kentucky. I'm in Northern Illinois, and yet here we are still going back
Jersey.
to those Bergen County, New
Oh well,
Jersey
funny story. I'm
relationships.
I'm planning a trip before Memorial Day to go to New Jersey just to see some friends and just
Mhm.
kind of have a good weekend and do it. I do miss the food. I miss the people. But this is a great place to live. I've been here 20 years already, and
Wow. Yeah.
so it'll be 21 years June that I've been in this area, and it's been great. But every once in a while, I need a little bit of something. A little
Yep.
pizza, a little bagel, with schmear, a little bit better than Panera. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's it. When my daughter and I go back to New Jersey, and we go back like once or twice a year because she still has, a lot of friends there. We've only been out here for a little less than 4 years. So when we go back, I mean, we don't even check into the hotel, and we go get a pizza
Oh, of
and bring
course.
it back to the hotel. Like that is our first meal when we get into town.
So I have a question for you.
Mhm,
When I was growing up, I went to Cliffside Park High School,
mhm.
and Vincent's Pizza was the best ever for me.
Okay.
And there was in North Bergen, there's a place called Father and Son Pizza, which if you have ever called them, you'd answer up, it would be Fasan. How much time? 40 minutes. That's how they would answer the phone, Fasan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there was Soul Pizza on Kennedy Boulevard, North Bergen. But any pizza places that, and of course, I'm going to eat in Ramsey. I'm going to go to Kinchley's. And
Oh,
that's not
okay. Yeah.
really, that's not like a famous kind of pizza. Just they've got like a smaller pizza, but I like that place for different reasons, right? The pizza is wonderful for everything.
Yeah, I've been I've been to Kinchley's a million times, and their pizza's really good. But when we go into town, our local pizza place, and it might be because my daughter's friends used to work there, but is Anthony Franco's.
Oh yeah.
They also have a location on Route 17 in Paramus, and I think a couple other locations, but those are the only two I've been to. But they delivered. They
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Well, it's like, when certain places that you live, you get those pizza. Like I said, Father and Son was the best in North Bergen. And then when I, moved a little bit to Fairview, they, obviously Vincent's. And I went back, God, this is going back about 15 years ago. And I went back and I'm looking, first thing like you guys, we didn't even check into the hotel barely, got the kids in the van and we're going to Vincent's, right? In Cliffside. Get there and I'm looking on the corner. I'm like, where? It's not here. I'm like, no, they didn't move. And I look over and they just moved across, like
Oh,
they
good.
moved literally like next door, but in a bigger place. So I was like, thank goodness I could not deal
Yeah.
with that. But I'm gonna try to get to Vincent's a little bit when I get back because hopefully they're still around and you can get a good slice of pizza. People don't understand that. It's like pizza is one of those things
Oh,
though that it's good no matter what. I mean, you can have bad pizza and it still be very good, but when you have very good pizza, like you go into Manhattan and you can grab a slice at a local place. People don't
at
understand that
Ray's.
you can walk and eat with a pizza, right? It's like
Yeah.
getting a hot dog off the cart, right? You can walk and eat. People don't get that. So
Well, my dad always used to say that his favorite restaurant was any hot dog stand
yes.
on a street corner in New York.
So
Uh,
funny again, another funny story. 2010 brought the kids back. So my son was about 9. He was turning 10 and my daughter was 7. And we're in Manhattan and we take them around. We saw the tree, we walked around, we did all this stuff. And I asked the kids later on, what was their favorite part of the trip? Getting lunch on the cart. Just walking and getting lunch on the
of
cart. You believe
course.
that? Isn't that? And my son, when he got older, it was, the price of hot dogs went up. I was like, used to be $1.50 or something. It was like 4 something. And he wanted several of them. Like, it's not cheap anymore.
Yeah. Well,
But
what Chicago has here, we don't like. Honestly, I mean, some people love Chicago pizza. It's just not for me. I don't like the deep dish thing. It's kind of, I don't know. And then they have this other thing called like tavern style pizza, which is
yeah,
really like, it would be fine. It tastes great, but they cut it really weird. Have you ever seen how they
Yeah.
like it's like in squares? So the 4 pieces that are in the middle that have no crust, like what do you do with those?
I know. I don't understand that. They've got
Yeah,
that
I don't.
here with snappy tomato. They like some have the crust on, some don't. And I, yeah. The one thing about Chicago pizza, I will say this: it is very tasty. But the biggest problem I have with it, it is more of a meal than pizza in New York
Yeah,
is. It's
yeah.
like
It's not
when
the
you
grab the slice
no,
and walk down the streets thing.
no,
Yeah,
you're not. You got like all this stuff on it, and I mean, every once in a while, I remember even getting Chicago classic pizza, even in New Jersey, you can get it. But it's again, it's a meal. It's more of a thing. But I could talk about food all day. I love
well, the
food.
one thing that I think Chicago does really great are all these street festivals that they
Yeah,
have. Like they have the Rib Fest, and they have other, street fairs. Like every neighborhood chamber has like it's awesome. They just music and entertainment and lots of food and just yeah. So if
well,
you
I
come to
can't
Chicago,
argue.
look for the local food, the local food street festivals. Awesome.
I love Chicago. You know what's a nice city too, and you've probably been. I find it to be like a smaller version of Chicago, but a little bit. It's like less crowded. Milwaukee.
We have been to
Yeah,
Milwaukee. I mean, actually, kind of like where we live in Northern Illinois is almost equidistant between the Loop in Chicago and Milwaukee. So we've been up there a few times for concerts, and
yeah,
I've been up there with my daughter too. And of course, we did a race up there. We did.
sure.
Kurt ran the half marathon up there. I just did the 5K, I guess 2 years ago. The pandemic definitely put some
Yeah.
brakes on a lot of our running, but we're getting back to organized racing now, which is nice.
Well, that's good. And I give you a lot of credit for doing the running because I don't know, 26 miles to run. I have a problem driving 26 miles, never mind running, but I give you credit for that. And it's, fantastic. Keep us posted on all of that.
Yeah,
And
well,
they yeah,
running is definitely a light, especially running a marathon or even a half marathon, or maybe starting off if you don't do a lot with a 5K. It's life changing. It helps your self esteem, and it just sets you off.
of
better
course,
things.
though, it reminds me of the scene from Back to the Future 3 where they said, running. Is anybody chasing them? They run for you run for. Does anybody walk anywhere? They walk. They run for fun,
Yep.
right? You run for
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, you can
And
like
even more
yeah.
meaningful when you're doing it for charity. So
Oh, of course, of course.
Yep.
Why don't you give for the last time? Give your website out so people can follow. Again, I will have the website in the description on how you could follow Mary and follow her podcast, The Cause Coach. But just give that out one more time.
Yeah, so the website is thecausecoach.net. You can get links to the podcast and the blog on there. So and then if you want to find me professionally, find me at mercyhome.org and click on the link for charity marathon team.
Wonderful. Well, you can like Lens Burning Bush on Facebook. We're on Facebook Live. You can see us on Facebook Live at Lens Burning Bush. You could follow along on Twitter Live as well at Lens Burning Bush. Make sure you follow on Twitter also. The YouTube channel is Lens Burning Bush, and follow Len Harvey on the YouTube channel there. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. You can ask Alexa to play Lens Burning Bush and, get all the episodes, 107 of them. I cannot believe that it's been that long. But Mary, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a treat, and I wish we could go longer, but we could do this for hours. And let's get together soon, maybe in person at some point. We'll figure out. Maybe I'll come to Chicago, or if you ever could come here, we could do a little bourbon, or we could do something. We could figure.
Sounds good. I'd love that, Len. Thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been. Well, thank you, Mary Connolly. I'm Len Harvey. Be back with another episode of Len's Burning Bush next week. So long.
Lens bush is burning, it's burning for you.